Welcome, everyone, to the Advanced Sports Analytics Podcast. It is May 10th. I'm here with Stuart Gibson. We are going to chat about today's NBA slate. We have 6 games in store starting at 7:30. And I just want to mention questions. We will be monitoring questions and taking any questions that come our way. Stuart, how's it going? We're getting to the tail end of the NBA season. It's messy, although tonight shouldn't be terribly messy. This season, will rest in peace as far as I'm concerned. Especially the second half has been a little messy. So we've got one more week and then it's all over. But I will say, in DFS terms, these NBA slates have remained popular. It's a little surprising.
Yeah, I do wonder, I think it is potentially a function of the teams we have playing tonight, but the game totals here tonight are insane. I mean, there's not a game total below. I think the low is 225, Golden State at Utah. And there are, some up-tempo, poor defense teams playing tonight for sure. But I do wonder if those high totals are kind of a function of just the sloppy nature of kind of this last week of the season. I think motivation questions are very, very appropriate at this time of year. And, you might be seeing that with some of the, high totals. We're in the home stretch, looking forward to playoffs where I think things figure to play out more in line with expectation. The last really month or so is always kind of kooky. So.
Well, let's do it in the normal way today where we don't bury the lead. We go ahead and go straight to our optimizer, and then we take it from there. However, I will need your help at a key juncture. I can't recall the last time where someone's been in our optimal and I didn't recognize the name, but that is happening tonight. So you're going to have to help me out at the forward position. So current – I'm sorry. I didn't have on the SuperDraft optimal. I had on our DK optimal. But Kabengally, do you know anything about him? He's a min-price forward on DraftKings, and for some reason he's showing up in our optimal.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cleveland's really thin at the front court. They've got Hartenstein, Al, Love, Osman, Lamar Stevens. So I think they're just really they're really thin at the front court. Garland out at guard. Not sure that's going to be a huge impact. I think that's the thinking there. We've got him projected for 24 minutes, kind of a pedestrian 16% usage rate. In SuperDraft, he's at 2x. These are like these type of guys that on the salaried sites, like they are regularly in consideration because the pricing floor is so low. But because the multiplication ceiling of 2x isn't like super high, some of these deeper bench plays who trickle into, some non-zero role, they just have kind of less impact. Like I think if Kabengally was 3x or something, or 2.5x, and similar players, you might see more of these kind of eighth, kind of third player off the bench, eighth player in the rotation, be in play. But you don't really see much of that with SuperDraft. I kind of like that because, it is, tough making some of these calls on like a guy that you just have no or very limited prior data on, who you think, should be in line for 20 minutes and, just kind of rolling with it. You don't really have to make those big kind of uncomfortable leaps on some of these deeper plays. It doesn't look like he's in play. I'm sorry, he is in play, but he's not like a kind of cash game block. Do you think he would be an interesting play? I mean, Indiana plays so fast, and is not a very good defense. So do you think he could be in play? But anyways, why don't we start with the guys that are in kind of the cash game pool, and we can get to some of these deeper plays towards the end of the show.
So we have 5 guys tonight that are in more than 70 out of 100 of our optimals. So that's a little bit unusual. We have 5 like near lock plays. Those plays are Sabonis, Westbrook, Sexton, Nurkic, and Giannis. So our top optimal currently is at guard Sexton, Brogdon, Westbrook, at forward Okoro, Sabonis, Giannis, and at center Nurkic. So at guard, I guess none of these are viewed as shaky as far as we're concerned, although Brogdon is coming in only 40% of optimals. He's a game time decision. He's likely to go. If he does not go, how do you see it?
Yeah, so I actually don't. I would lean towards him not going. He's missed the last 4 games. So I would lean towards him not going. I mean, he's a true questionable. I mean, I think no Brogdon just gives a little more juice for Sabonis, who we're already very high on. I mean, I think the relevant injuries in Indiana for Sabonis are the fact that there's no Miles Turner and no Jakar Sampson, who's kind of like a backup power forward center. So it's just like Sabonis at center. They're going to have Goga off the bench, who they never really play much more than like 20 minutes. Sabonis has gotten, I think, 40 plus minutes in 3 out of the last 4 games that this trio of Brogdon, Sampson, and Turner have been out. Again, not like too convinced that the Brogdon injury is hyper relevant there from a minute standpoint, although I do think it probably raises Sabonis's usage floor a little bit. I think if Brogdon doesn't play, see a bit more run and usage for Karis LeVert. He's played 40 plus minutes in back-to-back games.
Not very generous on his multiplier, but still seems like he's in the conversation. 1.2 is his multiplier.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a fair price for LeVert. Cleveland is an interesting matchup. They play pretty slow, but their defense is pretty weak. They allow, good offensive efficiency to their opponents. So, I mean, you kind of can see in there right now, LeVert is, a fringe cash play. It looks like he's getting beat out by Brogdon and like Draymond Green in some lineups. But yeah, could see LeVert slide into kind of optimal consideration should Brogdon get ruled out, which I don't know. To me, I would lean towards being the case.
In terms of other key injury concerns on the night, Houston, we've mentioned for months, has been tanking. They have a messy situation tonight. Do you think Olynyk and Wood are probable? It would seem like they are, but it's hard to say.
From what I haven't been paying close attention to the specifics of that, the Houston injury situation. Wood has missed time fairly recently. So I think Wood is at higher risk of being out than Olynyk. But as per RotoWire, they're both projected to be in the starting lineup. So that would appear to be the case tonight.
So just looking at the start times, we have the 7:30 game, Atlanta 8-point favorite, 238 total. The Atlanta guys are not rating super high for us. We only have Trey in 5% of optimals. But the chalk is sort of so strong. There is some temptation to run some Trey and Westbrook, and then if it goes well, kind of lock in the star plays, and if it goes poorly, do some strong pivoting. How do you see Atlanta? Do you think Trey is in play?
I would not consider much Trey. I think it's a tough matchup going up against Washington. They play really fast, but have been a very good defense for the second half of the season. And I just think it's going to be hard to fit him in with strong chalk like Westbrook. I think is unfadable. Sexton feels like very strong chalk with all the injuries to Cleveland starters. So I think maybe Trey could fit in kind of that third guard spot, but I think I would be more partial to a guy like Levert or Brogdon if Brogdon plays, or going with someone like McCollum on Portland, who just has high game total, high implied team total for the Blazers. I think they have, when you do the math, would have the highest implied total on the slate. So I think I'd probably prefer to go there over Trey. But I mean, yeah, for tournament purposes, like I don't think anyone is out of consideration. I think if we were to turn the bounce up reasonably high and put some like 10% or so, maybe put the differentiators to 2 and cap teams at two players per team, I imagine we would get some Trey if we're running 20 plus lineups or something like that. So he's not going to be a core for cash game purposes for tournament purposes in my mind, if you're only doing like 5 to 10 hand built lineups. But if you are doing kind of a MME builds with reasonably high levels of kind of diversity, I think Trey could fit in there. And of course, I think makes for a decent pair across from Westbrook. It's a strong game environment. I think just figures to be better for a guy like Westbrook than Young.
So on Cleveland, Okoro has too high of a multiplier at 1.8, and probably somewhat unfadable, right, at that multiplier. He's historically a strong defensive guy, and then he's had strong offensive production the past 10 games, which have corresponded with Cleveland losing 10 in a row. But his production in these past 10 games has been such that he seems almost unfadable at 1.8. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I mean, it would take, I think, further injury shakeups around the slate to create some individual or players that I think leapfrog Okoro. The knock on him, I think, early in the season was that he's just low usage, and he's always been getting minutes in, not always, but there have been long stretches even early in the season where he's been getting minutes in the low to even mid 30s. But it's been, I think, good for people that want to roster Okoro that his usage has really ticked up. Like early in the season, his usage kind of lived in the low teens, just wasn't very involved in the offense. And over these past couple of weeks, he's been consistently between kind of 15 and 20% as far as usage rate goes. He's logged a couple 20+% usage rates in the last couple of weeks, which he had only done like a smattering of times in all games prior. So it looks like he's just becoming a little more involved in the offense, and it certainly doesn't hurt rather that guys like Garland, Love, Osman are expected to be or are out. I think that trend probably continues for Okoro, and 1.8x. You got to feel good about a guy that you can lock in for minutes in the mid 30s. And high 30s. I wouldn't say lock in for high 30s, but feel likely that he's going to get close to 40 minutes. Going to have a usage rate between 15 and 20%. That's a guy that should probably be 1.5, 1.6 multiplier. And of course, the defensive value that he brings is not to be overlooked as well.
So currently we have Draymond Green in 37% of optimals at the forward position. Um, I view him as shaky and very fadeable. It's in the lowest total game of the night, 225 total. Closely contested game. How do you see Draymond as a play tonight?
Yeah, I think he's a stronger tournament play than Cash. He has games where he just doesn't really do much, but of course he has these games where he's just hyper involved. He does have triple double equity, which I would say few players at his multiplication level have. I think he could be left out of cash game builds. Not sure that I would go full fade on him for tournaments, just given how productive he can be in really all facets of the game, and especially on the defensive end. SuperDraft is going to reward those steals and blocks. They reward triple doubles in a way that FanDuel, which is high on steal and block scoring, does not. I like Green a good bit, and it doesn't hurt that guys like Oubre, Pascal, Lee are out there. Golden State's a little thin at kind of this small forward, power forward position that Green plays.
So at the center position, we have Nurkic in 84% of optimals. If you wanted to fade, you could play Sabonis at center and play three other forward eligible guys. Is there anyone else at center who you think is viable in tournaments?
Yeah, I like Capella a good bit as a tournament alternative to Nurkic. Capella's minutes have been kind of unstable as of late. He has some games where he is in the low 30s, and then he has other games. I'm not sure if it's a foul trouble thing or just a rotational thing or matchup. He gets maybe small balled out of the lineup, but he does have some games where he's only playing minutes in the mid 20s. But for tournament purposes, he does have a minute ceiling in kind of the low to mid 30s, which Nurkic doesn't really have. I mean, they haven't been playing him much more than like 28, 29 minutes in his return from injury. So while it is a phenomenal matchup for Nurkic, Houston plays fast and poor defense. I do think there are paths to, and it could also just be like there is some significant blowout risk in this game. It's got the largest spread on the slate by a pretty significant margin. I think it's 4.5 points higher than the second largest spread, which is Indy at Cleveland and New Orleans at Memphis. It's not so much that I think Capella has huge blowout potential, but just that, I think that there is some blowout risk with a guy like Nurkic, such that he drops out of, optimal, tournament winning, scores. And maybe a guy like Capella kind of leapfrogs him or beats him. Jared Allen, I think another guy that could be in play with all the Cleveland injuries, the same factors that benefit Okoro, I think benefit Allen as well. And of course he's got, good steal and block potential. So he can kind of fill up some of those defensive stats quickly going up against Indiana, who is super up tempo team. I think Allen could be in play for tournaments as well. And he's at the same multiplier as Nurkic. So you kind of just need him to beat Nurkic's raw scores, or with Capella, you need him to significantly outperform Nurkic, given he's kind of, he's 0.1x lower.
Talk to us about Wiggins and Bazemore. We have Wiggins in 10% of optimals and Bazemore in 11% of optimals. Are these guys you would target in tournaments?
Yeah, I think just a good multiplier on them. Wiggins has been getting a ton of minutes comfortably in the mid 30s. He's a reasonably high usage player, does have efficiency concerns from time to time, but for tournament purposes, you sometimes have to take your shots on high volume, low efficiency players, hoping that you catch them on an efficient night. And then Bazemore at 1.8x, I would say he's kind of just like a less productive Okoro and in a slightly weaker game environment. but really high multiplier, is going to get minutes in the 30s, isn't super high usage, but you're just kind of hoping that he gets a few extra shots, maybe can create some positive variance plays on the defensive end. And at 1.8x, that stuff can pay off in a big way. But as our projections reflect, we do think Okoro is in just a better spot given his minute ceiling, given the matchup going up against Indiana. I think a far better matchup than going up against Utah. But hey, maybe Okoro is super inefficient or kind of has variance work against him and isn't able to get any defensive stats, and Bazemore has a positive variance game and is able to get 3+ combined steals and blocks at 1.8x. I think definitely has to be a part of the tournament player pool.
So let's finish up talking about some viable guards for tournaments. Who do you see at the guard position that you think has some pop?
Well, mentioned McCollum, 1.3x. That's, I think, a kind of a good multiplier range in that, I think McCollum has a good floor on him. And, he can get hot and fill it up quickly. And Houston, I think, is a good matchup. There's some blowout risk there. They're kind of almost too good of a matchup, but they play fast and they play terrible defense. And this time of year, they just might not show up at all. So I like McCollum a decent bit. Drew Holiday just, I think, has natural leverage properties against Giannis, who would expect to be popular tonight. So, I think makes for a strong tournament pivot off of Giannis. Clarkson, we have been higher on at points in kind of the past month, and this Conley-Mitchell injury phase. It does seem kind of Bogdanovic has taken over a lot more of the offensive responsibilities than maybe some of our early projections had hoped for. But I do still think Clarkson could be in play. I mean, he is kind of like Wiggins in that he can be a high volume, low efficiency scorer, and if you just catch him on the right night, you're in a good position to win a tournament. Going up against Golden State, it is the lowest total on the slate, but it's still perfectly high total. I mean, 225. Utah -2.5. I think should have enough scoring to support at least one and potentially two strong plays from the Utah or Golden State side. So those might be some of the deeper guards that I'd be looking at.
And tonight is the type of night where game stacks, which we're usually not a proponent of for SuperDraft, they have some merit because we've seen mini slates before where you get multiple blowouts and only a couple of games turn out to be viable. This feels like it could be one of those slates. What might be a game that you take your chances on a game stack, going a bit heavier on both sides? Or do you think the individual plays are so strong that that's sort of torching money? It is. In the past, we've had more top-heavy tournaments on SuperDraft. Now it's not very top-heavy, and the flatter structure does make you want to play something that looks a bit more like a cash game lineup. So you could be going too far afield with the game stack, but obviously something like Houston Portland has some appeal.
It's tough. There's a number of games that have features that would be good for game stacking. Houston Portland obviously has an incredible total. I mean, there's just like near zero overtime equity for that game. And then the game with probably the most overtime equity, Utah Golden State, has the lowest total, has the slowest team on the slate. In Utah, To me, Indiana Cleveland would probably be the game I would look at. I think there is a high amount of value that's available in that game, given the injuries to the Cleveland and Indiana side. Um, it's towards the bottom as far as totals go, but Milwaukee, San Antonio, I just don't, there's not enough like injuries to really create a lot of value. The San Antonio side isn't priced, super loosely. And, neither is really the Milwaukee side. I guess like Giannis and Holiday maybe stand out as slightly underpriced, but not by like a largely discernible margin. So I think I kind of like that Indiana Cleveland game, and maybe just hope that Indiana shows up. Some of these young guys are a little more competitive than Vegas is anticipating, and you get an overtime game where Brogdon doesn't play, and you have Sabonis plus LeVert, you have Sexton plus Okoro, or Okoro plus Allen, or Sexton plus Allen, something like that. And yeah, maybe you get an overtime game out of it. And those guys all have, particularly on the Cleveland side, and Sabonis at 1.15, I think is a decent multiplier as well. Getting 5 extra minutes, especially for the Cleveland side, I think could be particularly valuable. So that would probably be the game I would target for game stack purposes.
I like it. Yeah, on a short slate like this, there's always the possibility that some of these minus 8-point games turn into blowouts, and you only have 1 or 2 that are super competitive.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff. Well, we will be back on Wednesday, and we'll have on Wednesday 2 podcasts. We'll have PGA. We'll also have NBA, and hopefully some single game content as well.